In what has been called the country's worst natural disaster since the tsunami in 2004, the devastating floods and landslides that shook Uttarakhand last month have had a traumatic effect on the entire nation. Not only have more than 5,700 people been pronounced dead, but the multitudes of pilgrims who escaped the catastrophe on the Char Dham have been shaken to their core. With millions looking at this disaster as an act of God, what's the fate of faith amongst pilgrims, and more importantly, what needs to be done to restore Kedarnath to its original glory? Tara Kapoor spoke to a host of religious scholars and social commentators to get a sense on this one.
Faith has been shaken.
ऐसा लगता था जैसे सब लोगों को मार देगा, बम की तरह फूट रहे थे।
यहाँ ना कुछ खाने का इंतजाम है, ना कुछ है, इतने परेशानी की हद तक जाओ।
बहुत खुशी से गए थे, वो कहने लगे थे हम यात्रा करने जा रहे हैं, अभी उधर इतना हादसा हो रहा है।
The locals have been shocked.
गवर्नमेंट कुछ हेल्प नहीं कर रही थी, 4 दिन से हम लोग वहाँ पे सड़कों पे घूम रहे थे, कुछ नहीं, और वहाँ के पब्लिक विदाउट हार्ट, उन्हें कोई दया नहीं आती थी हमारे पर।
And the survivors have been scarred for life.
हमारा सब पूरा साफ हो गया है, वहाँ बहुत आदमी मर चुके हैं, बहुत मर चुके हैं कि कोई गिनती नहीं हो सकती। कुल मिला के हमारे 4 आदमी अभी गैब हैं, हम लोग सुरक्षित हैं।
But how long will it take for public memory to fade away and for the belief system to return to its original glory? Like any natural disaster, there is definitely an element of fear that has seeped into the hearts of many. There are plenty who question God's wrath and why He would target the most pious. And there are thousands who are mourning the losses of loved ones. And as a result, the psychological impact on the thousands of travelers to the region has been huge and can be seen in terms of the number of cancellations to Uttarakhand. According to industry estimates, even regions that have been unaffected by the floods like Nainital and Mussoorie have estimated the number of cancellations to be around 50%. The expectation is that it will take a minimum of 3 to 4 years for all to be forgotten and for faith in not only the Kedarnath temple but the entire region to be restored.
You know, the first casualty of this entire natural calamity is faith. Faith itself gets shaken, stirred, and questioned. I'm not saying that these places are going to turn into ghost towns as such, but I'm simply saying that, hey, listen, people are going to think twice and thrice because the terrain you're going to move into has swallowed a lot of people, maybe 5,000 plus people, 5,000 souls lingering out there, and 5,000 deaths which were reasonably gory.
Kumbh was seen as something new, a new instant city created by pilgrims, maintained by government support. So to a certain extent, the stampede in fact took place slightly outside the governmental area. This is different because one is a tragedy at a railway station. This is a tragedy over an entire ecology. In one, the crowd takes over and destroys the structure. In another, greed by government, by business, to a certain extent destroys the ecology of the place and creates a certain kind of exaggerated anxiety. But remember, both are man-made. In one, the effects are long run. One, it was too quick to worry about. It was a kind of technological indifference where you did not maintain a bridge or an engineering structure.
And of course, if this repeats itself, which last year also we had an event of this kind, this year we've had a much larger event. If it happens once more, then we are pretty much, it is very clear that it's going to be a, devastating impact.
But there are many who believe that this tragedy has in fact increased the mystique factor of the temple, especially given the fact that the 8th century shrine survived the mass destruction that has affected the surrounding area.
Interesting thing is that you will get new stories about the power of the god. And people will be much more convinced about that. For instance, in this case, the story is going on that inside the temple, there was no damage of life.
However, even if that is the case, traversing on the current path to the temple is virtually impossible. And while the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand has elaborate plans of reconstruction and restoration of the region, the process will take at least 3 to 4 years to complete. And in the meantime, the focus of many pilgrims might shift to different holy destinations.
Perhaps in the next year or two, people will probably switch their attention to other sites. But do remember, the point about visiting a remote and difficult location like Kedarnath precisely is that it brings out this physical demand on people. Otherwise, they will go to the temple down the road. Part of these pilgrimages, especially into the high Himalayas, consists precisely in the challenge they place to people. It is the responsibility of the government to provide proper access and transport. Now, it might mean that some people will say that it is not difficult enough.
And while hardship is undoubtedly a very important aspect of these pilgrimages for devotees, especially in terms of struggling during the course of the journey, this aspect has been dwindling over the years. With the help of technology and connectivity, many pilgrims, especially those who can afford it, are preferring more convenient and comfortable means of travel. In fact, this change in terms of how people consume faith is a trend that has been occurring for most religions.
As the Indian middle class becomes more and more lethargic, the question of lifestyle sports, lifestyle hikes, lifestyle pilgrimages will become much more important. Because remember, while one level you have what I call the couch potato, and you might even have the equivalent, the couch pilgrim. I'll give you an example. In Gujarat, near Gandhinagar, you can visit a surrogate Vaishno Devi, and that brings a lot of pilgrims. When you can't go to the original, you take the surrogate.
Take Christianity, for example, where the church-going habits for many Christians in both the UK and the US has been dramatically decreasing over the years. This doesn't mean that there are less believers. It simply means that many choose to practice their faith at times and places that are convenient for them. And by following that logic, the recent floods at Kedarnath have shown millions of the risk and danger involved in pilgrimages like this. And in fact, could make many worshippers think twice before packing their bags.
There are two kinds of people. One is the kind of person who says, I can worship God at home. And God is in me, God is with me. And to that extent, for this person, God is a product. And then there's the other person who is, besotted with the retail dimension of it all. And this person wants the service elements to govern it all. And I think that person wants the shusha around all of it. After disasters of this kind, I think a lot more people are going to say, God is in me, God is with me, and I can worship God wherever, whenever, at my will.
In the old days, if you remember, people who were going on a pilgrimage used to touch their parents' feet because they never knew when they'd come back. Today, what has happened is, because of mass tourism, pilgrimages have become tourist spots. And everybody packs their bag of Maggi noodles and heads off saying they're going for pilgrimage. So I think this will sort out the men from the boys, as it were.
The demographic that many believe will be most impacted by this tragedy will be the younger generations, who already question religious activities and are generally more skeptical when it comes to faith. Some findings from a report by Princeton University highlight this point, where majority of the youth surveyed said that A, they feel that religious activities seem irrelevant. B, they would like to know the meaning of religious traditions. C, they would like to see changes in their own religious communities. And finally, D, they also express concern that worship services feel meaningless. With the youth already questioning religious activities and worship systems, this level of mass destruction would only take their cynicism further.
I think with every generation, the definition of what constitutes hardship also changes. This is a generation where not finding, mineral water bottle which is cold, at the moment you want it, can be seen as hardship.
The task at hand for the Uttarakhand government is gargantuan in nature.
My brother was there inside the mandir. He was doing puja inside. I'm searching for him. Whether he is dead or alive, I'm not aware.
A difficult ask? given the amount of negative criticism the government has already faced during the rescue operation.